Hello, friends. In the series of learning, computer organization and design, today we are going to discuss about multiprocessors. So, before beginning, let's put some light on the agenda of today's session. So, we will begin the topic by introducing the multiprocessors. Then, we will learn the various types of multiprocessors available. And after it, we will put some light on the advantages and disadvantages that the multiprocessors are having. And in the end, we will learn about the coupling procedure of the processors. So, without wasting any further time, let's start with the introduction of multiprocessors. So, before beginning with the topic or before getting into depth of the things, the first thing is that what exactly is the meaning of this multiprocessors? So, if I am dividing this terminology in two parts, it is making multi-processors means many, multi means many processors we know, the CPUs, right? So, actually, we are talking about the electronic machine which is consisting of many or multiple CPUs together. So, this is what is the technology of multiprocessors. So, a shared memory multiprocessor or just a multiprocessor is a computer system in which two or more CPUs share full access to the common RAM. So, this property is important to understand. When we are having number of processors within our machine, the unique property of multiprocessors is that all of these systems, all of these processors will access the one common memory. This memory will have be common to all of these processors. So this is the unique definition of these multiprocessors. Now, when we are having the common memory existing for all the different processors, then there are some chances that the CPU one, if has updated some data here, okay, and let's suppose he has written the data like this in this particular memory. I am just taking any random value here which has been stored by the CPU one. Maybe the CPU two has updated certain values like this. So the next time when CPU 1 will try to read this data, so instead of getting this data, the CPU 1 will get the updated data. So the point is that any of the CPU, any of the processor has the right to update the contents in the main memory. So this is the only thing which might confuse the machine or in terms of getting the data, right? Otherwise, this unique property is defining the multiprocessors. So this is what has been written here. The only unusual, this is what is actually unusual, right? Property this system has is that the CPU can write some data or some value in the memory word and then read the word back and get a different value. So this could be the a possibility that it might happen. Some data have been written by any of the CPU might be altered by the another CPU as well. So this can happen because they all are having or accessing the same memory. So now after understanding the multiprocessors, now let's discuss about what are the types of the multiprocessors been existing. So at a broader level, there are only two types, symmetric and asymmetric. So let's start understanding about the symmetric multiprocessors first. So, as the name simplifies, symmetric means some synchronization is there, right? So let's understand about what does the symmetric multiprocessors are consisting of. So basically, in such kind of systems, each processor contains the same copy of the OS. So this is important to understand. Whenever we are working with the symmetric multiprocessors, every processor has the access to the similar kind of operating system and they all communicate with each other. So actually what happens is that all the CPUs, CPU 1, CPU 2, CPU 3, okay, the processor have to talk to any of the software, so their OSs are the same one. The very first point is this, and they are in peer to peer relationship with each other. So this is the kind of relationship they are sharing, means all are considered equally and they do their job as their own. in their own manner. So the point is that there is nothing like a master slave kind of thing. There is a one CPU who is looking after the others. No. In the case of symmetric one, they are in the peer to peer relationship, okay? And there is no master slave kind of thing existing here. And the another thing is that they all are sharing the similar kind of OSs among themselves. So one of the best example which is depicting the symmetric multiprocessor systems are an core version of Unix for the Multimax computer. So this is the example of the symmetric multiprocessors. So now let's define about the second type, which is asymmetric one. So it is exactly the opposite of the symmetric, as the name simplifies itself. So basically what is happening here is these kind of processors are actually having the master slave kind of relationship. Okay. So why is it so? Because there is a one processor who is looking after the who is managing the or coordinating the other processors. So each and every processor is been given a set of tasks. Okay, so let us suppose in multiprocessor systems, there are total five different processors available. Now each the job is actually been segmented among all those five multiprocessors, and each processor is aware of his or her its own job that they have to perform. Okay, so this is what the point is. Every processor is given a predefined task, and there is a master processor that gives the instruction to all the other processors, right? And asymmetric multiprocessors contains a master slave relationship. So basic point is the basic characteristic of the asymmetric kind of processor is they are having the master slave relationships. Okay, so basically what happens is when we started learning about the multiprocessor systems in the very beginning, these were the only kind of multiprocessor systems been created or were been existing. Okay, that is why they are also the cheap option also. Then later on, the symmetric multiprocessors were defined and they came into market. And accordingly, they started defining their own terminologies, and they started working on their own characteristics. So asymmetric were the first one which came into the market or which were being developed first. So after understanding the types of the multiprocessors, now let's put some light on the advantages that these multiprocessors are providing to us. So basically, if in a very layman language, if we talk about the things, if I am having within my machine the capability of multiple processors, then what could I get? So definitely the reliability is becoming high when we are having the multiprocessor systems available. So my point is that if within my machine I am having, let us suppose, three processors, so even then I can rely on my machine more, because what if the one processor is down? I know that the other two processors are working. My work will not halt. That is why the systems, this multiprocessor architecture are providing us some reliable kind of solutions. So even if one processor fails, the system will not halt. Okay. So the ability to continue working despite hardware failure is known as a graceful degradation. So this is what is the point being there. Even if one is down for any reason, under maintenance for any particular ABC reason, the job will keep on continuing. So because the work will get distributed. So for example, if there are four processors in a multiprocessor system and one of them fails, then four processors are still working. So the system only becomes slower, maybe a little bit slower in terms of processing might happen, but it is not going to stop the entire work. So that is why you can rely upon these kind of machines. So this is one of the biggest advantage that processors are giving us. Then is the second point, you can enhance your throughput, definitely. So if number of processors are working together to perform a one single job, so the chances that your job will get done in the less amount of time will become increased, right? So then the throughput of the system increases because the number of processes getting executed per time increases. So definitely So whenever we are working with the number of processors together, the throughput rate always become enhanced. So you can simply imagine the scenario: if one processor is doing the same job, and if three processors working together are performing the same job, so you can expect better throughput rate. So this is the second advantage. Then is the third point: more economic systems we can develop. So this point is important to understand here. So first of all, let's discuss the theory, and then I will elaborate it with some example. So these are the more economic systems. Why and how these are economic? So these are cheaper than the single processor system in the long run. So this is what the point is. If we are having far-sightedness, or if we are having some future expectations, right, from the machine, then this using a multiprocessor system is one of the best choice. Why? Because they share the data storage, the peripheral devices, the power supplies, etc. If there are multiple processes that share data, it is better to schedule them on multiple processor system with the shared data than have different computer systems with multiple copies of data. So let's understand it in more detail. So example is very simple. I am saying in one machine, I am having one, two, three, and four processors running, which are contributing and providing me the enhanced throughput, okay, and more reliability, and they are sharing the main memory together. Now this is the one machine. No doubt this machine will be costly for sure, because this machine is equipping, it is having a unique feature that it is using the multiprocessors facility, right? Now my point is that all these processors, this particular machine, this one machine is actually executing the task of four machines in one sense, and the other resources like the peripheral devices and the power and the other storage components, let's suppose, or the networking components, or any other component which are essential to make a machine working in a good manner, right? So all these are becoming shared. So definitely, instead of using the four machines for different peripherals, for different power supplies, for different storage medias and networking materials, this is actually an economic solution to me, right? So in that sense, we are saying that if I am having a powerful machine within me, powerful in the sense I am having the multiprocessors ability, then these kind of machines are actually actually highly economic kind of machines, if we think it in a long run. Okay, so otherwise, in order to purchase such kind of machine, which is a very which is consisting of some complex kind of capabilities, right? So this one time cost will be very high. Otherwise, in long run, this is an economic solution. Because if you and me have to purchase such kind of machines, let's suppose we can spend only 40K to 50K, let us suppose. Okay, let nowadays 70K till to purchase the laptop. But if I have to spend 5 lakh or 8 lakh to 8 lakh kind of money, then I will think. So this is what is the basic difference between the two things. In the long run, I know these are the powerful machines, these would be more beneficial. If I have to perform some research work, then that these are the one of the good choices. But otherwise, for the normal use, I don't think this will be a better option then. So in long run only we can think about these systems, and in that sense they are economic in nature. Okay, so same is the case for the disadvantages as well. So the very first point is almost the same: increased expense. So definitely not everyone can afford it. It is not everyone's, you could say that it is fulfilling everyone's need. Because if you want to use it for the general purpose only, then there is no need to spend so much, because these are highly expensive, they are quite expensive in nature. So it is much cheaper to buy a simple single processor system than a multiprocessor. So this is the basic point. This is the disadvantage in terms of the cost factor only. because the one time cost is very high for that. So then the second thing is the complicated operating systems required. Definitely, when you want to work on a machine which has the ability to work on different kind of processors, so different processors, right? Then the computing power, the complexity of the machine, that will also increase. So ultimately, the softwares required to operate such machines would also be highly complicated, highly complex. So a more complex and complicated operating system is required in the multiprocessor systems. So this is the another aspect, you could say, which is a disadvantage. Not everyone could be understanding such kind of operating systems, how to work on them. So you need some specialized training to use such kind of machines. Then there is a third point, large main memory required. So again, this is the important point to consider. When I am saying that there are number of processors who are sharing a common memory here, right? The common main memory here, then it means that this memory which is getting shared should be very, very large in size. The reason being because these all processors should be having a synchronization with this main memory. So in order to make the synchronization, its size should be compatible with the capability of the processors. So that is why all the processors in the multiprocessor shared memory system, you need to actually have the requirement of large main memory. So this is what is being required here. Why so? Because we have learned that it is important that the all the data, all the peripherals should be in synchronization, okay, should work together. It should not be like one processor is working fast and the main memory is responding slowly. Ultimately it will be otherwise it will be a barrier. That is why a large main memory is required for such kind of multiprocessors. So this is the disadvantages that the multiprocessors are consisting of. So moving ahead, so this is the last part, the coupling of processor, how they are coupled together. So broadly, there are two ways through which the processors are coupled together or they are dependent upon each other. One is the tightly coupled. This is the one procedure. Tightly coupled means highly synchronized in nature. So all the processors which are connected together within one machine, they are in sync with each other in a highly synchronized fashion. Okay, this processor know when it has to work, this know when it has to work. It is not going to disturb the second processor or third or the fourth processor. So basically, how why this is the case? Because they are sharing the common shared memory. So in the tightly coupled system, there is only one passage to share this common memory, main memory. That is why they are working on the procedure of sharing the memory systems, and they always work in synchronization with each other. When the CPU 1 is accessing the main memory, then the CPU 2, 3, or 4 is not going to disturb this particular communication. Same is for the other also. This is what we called it as a tightly coupled system. They are coupled tightly together. They are highly in sync with each other. So the second type of processors are also existing, which are loosely coupled kind of things. So basically, they don't communicate in a synchronized fashion. Means this one, two, three, and four. These different processors, they might be having be sharing the common memory, but the point is that they are also having their own memories, local memories existing within them. So this particular one processor has nothing to do with the second or third. So in the loosely coupled, they are not communicating in a synchronized fashion. This is the first property. How they are communicating then? Just by passing the messages. Okay, they will float up message packet, and the other processors has to simply receive them. So the overhead for data exchange is very high. So basically, as the message passing technique is being used, so what happens? It has to always take care which this message is intended for the second one or for the third processor or for the fourth. So accordingly, whichever the processor is getting that particular message, accordingly it has to respond back. So overhead kind of condition is been there. So distributed memory system is required, as I said. So now we are not working on the common memories mechanism. One common memory is actually being distributed into the local memory, as well as they will also be dividing the or segmenting the main memory. So we will learn in detail about these coupling procedures in the advanced course of the computer organization and design. For the time being, the tightly coupled systems are working on the shared memory system, but in the loosely coupled are working on distributed memory system, in which one common memory is been segmented. This main memory is segmented into the various parts so that all the processors should work on their own predefined tasks and they should not disturb each other. Okay. So with this, I hope that you are able to understand today's session, students. Thank you so much for joining this session. Thank you.